Carla Atherton, Director of the Healthy Family Formula and host and producer of the Children's Health Summit 4. In response to the rapid rise in conditions such as autism, cancer, ADHD, GI distress, anxiety, depression, asthma, skin conditions, learning disabilities, and autoimmunity, the topic of this year's summit is preventing and reversing childhood chronic illness. And today I'm very excited to be interviewing this session's speaker, Larry Doochin. Larry Doochin is an entrepreneur, author, and devoted husband and father. As the co-founder of HUSO, he is a proponent of cutting-edge healing technologies that are non-invasive and restore the natural harmonic state that we were created with. He seeks to help awaken others to a greater understanding of the nature of reality and their role in that. So welcome, 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 Larry.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
I'm excited because you're the only one really talking about, I guess, sort of like tangible ways of, improving health, improving the stress response, improving, that rest digest, state to really access all of the other therapies that we're talking about in this summit. So, because I think that without dealing with that part, all that other stuff, a lot of that other stuff is very hard to do. So I really appreciate you being here. And I just want to sort of do a little introduction to why I wanted Larry to talk about that thing. Well, obviously, because I think that if we have stress, we can't heal. And so I think that first off, what I want to ask you, Larry, is to explain what is actually happening with the stress response when people are in that state. What's actually going on there?
Sure. Well, the stress response is something that's basically primal for us. It developed over our evolution, and it was meant to protect us because it's kind of, you want to go, the stress response is basically being in what's called a sympathetic state, which is a fight or flight state. And that developed over the need to literally run away from a tiger. So you wanted to have all that adrenaline and all of those biochemicals in the body happening so that you could have that superhuman response and power to be able to move quickly. The problem is that in our society is that most people are staying in a sympathetic response, in that fight or flight response. And that is very hard on the body in terms of being very strong. And stress has been determined to be the #1 precursor to disease. So 90% of the Western world is staying in that sympathetic fight or flight state, never moving to the parasympathetic or resting or healing state, which is a state that our bodies are most meant to be in a vast majority of the time. And any health professional will tell you that they want to see somebody or they want to treat somebody in that resting or healing state, the parasympathetic state, because everything they do is that much more effective for them. So basically, we are we're staying in that heightened state, that heightened nervous system state, and that's not healthy for us.
Yeah, really good explanation, because I think that stress is always an issue when you're talking about illness, because that our topic for this summit is preventing and reversing childhood chronic illness, right? So stress is it's huge in a household where children are sick for both the child and the parent. It's also a causal factor too. So, even if everybody's sort of seemingly healthy, there's high stress, and then that actually leads to chronic illness. So I think this is really an essential topic. And when you said that people get, practitioners or parents or whoever's ill or not feeling well, whatever, they get better results. And, and sometimes, when they deal with stress, and sometimes I feel like that's the tipping point, right? That's when once they figure that part out, that's when they actually start to get well. So, so my next question would be, there are all kinds of ways to reduce stress. What you do is what you focused on is a type of frequency medicine. So can you tell me what frequency medicine is, and how does sound therapy, so frequency is, I guess, basically sound, how does sound therapy mitigate that stress response?
Sure. Well, let me just basically say that, our stress response used to be mitigated because we lived in a world where we were in nature. So nature, so everything in the universe has its own frequency, and everything is in vibration. Everything is actually creating a sound, whether you can hear it or not. But everything is frequency, waveforms, resonance, vibration. This is all basic quantum physics. So what's happening is that, or what happened previously, is that nature has a very beneficial frequency. And we used to be on the land, we used to be outside much more. Now we're inside. We're not in nature. We're also basically exposed to a huge amount of toxic EMS in the form of wireless technology. There's a tremendous number of peer-reviewed studies on this. There's literally thousands of very reputable scientists, physicians, researchers who are speaking out across the world about this, because what's happening is that frequency is vastly different than the frequency that is in our body. So our bodies produce a frequency between usually about 2 to 12 hertz. Nature, what's called the Schumann resonance, produces a frequency around, and it's fluctuating some, but let's say around 7.8 hertz. So when you have like a cell phone up to your ear, that's producing a frequency of over 1 billion hertz. So, and then you've got all this Wi-Fi, and people don't really recognize this problem as much because electromagnetic fields are invisible. But if you could see this, I mean, there's a guy that's actually in England who did a visual representation of fields coming off a cell phone and Wi-Fi, and it's kind of scary looking actually. And he did different colors to show intensity. And so, you know, if you look around and then you go into most places, if you could see it visually, you would see that you're affected by all these fields, you can't get out of these fields, and that's what's keeping us in a large part of what's keeping us in a sympathetic fight or flight state. You know, the other part is the fact that we live in a very stressful society in terms of work, and both parents working, and you know, it's just vastly different. So there's a lot of factors contributing to it. But going back to the frequency, so we're electrical beings. We are frequency beings, and there are you know, back in the the late 1800s, early 1900s, up until really the 1950s, there was a large recognition of this model of frequency medicine in terms of what it do for us. And there was a guy like Royal Rife who had a Rife machine, and this is all documented. He was curing cancer with the Rife machine. And so what happened was that the more of the biochemical and pharmaceutical model came in the schools and kind of pushed out that frequency model. And so, you know, I think we're coming back to a turning around of people recognizing more that we are frequency beings, and the biochemical model is layered on top of the frequency persona or frequency template that we have. And so people are coming to understanding what frequency is. And so sound therapy is there's a lot of different things that are producing frequency medicine out there. There's things like, you know, biofeedback or neurofeedback or TENS, or there's PIMF, pulse electromagnetic field machines. There's variations of what used to be the Rife machine. There's, you know, there are different other types of sound therapy other than ours. And so everybody is really trying to affect the frequency of the body to restore it to health. And we feel that some of those are much more effective than others. Most everything that's being done out there, really everything that we know of, is being done through digital means, a digital frequency. So it's machine produced. Huso is actually the carrier of our frequency is human sound. So we feel like it's a much more restorative carrier of frequency into the body than digitally produced sound, because we produce human sound. Human sounds are organic to us. You think about listening to a powerful choir, you feel that energy running in your body. That's kind of the power of human sound. And then there's some other factors that maybe we can jump back on later in terms of, so it's different. But there's a number of different frequency medicine things. You know, particularly in sound therapy, there's things. somebody just singing to you is a type of frequency medicine, because it's all frequency. So somebody just speaking to you is a frequency that is affecting you. Certainly, and that's been demonstrated by in the tone of what we speak, in the words of which we speak, or frequency which affects our being. That was demonstrated well by the guy Moto in Japan, who did the water. I
have his book.
And snowflake, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So it's really cool. So so he showed how intention, what we're speaking, how we're speaking, and what we're speaking affects water, and that's really, and it's the same for us, because what you say to me is going to affect me. We're like 80% water, and it's been shown that water makes up a large part of our DNA, and that really this frequency is affecting our DNA. So this frequency is affecting us at a cellular level on a moment to moment basis. And so, but in terms of sound therapy, there's certainly people singing to you, or there's like crystal bowls, Tibetan bowls. There's other types of sound therapy that are programs, the digitized sound that's meant to put you into different brainwave states. And then Huso is quite different than any of those. And we can, whenever you're ready, we can kind of talk about that. But
yeah, for sure. Well, I just want to sort of move back to a few things that you were saying and pull those out just to highlight them. When you talked about, like, we used to be in nature more, instead of being inside of our houses and everything's kind of like, the sounds are kind of artificial, or they're sort of separate from nature. We can't really hear what's going on out there. And so, I just sort of think about spending a lot of time out in nature, especially with my kids or just by myself or whatever. And, we've always done that, like go outside, and you feel good because of the sun. You feel good because, you're touching the earth, the microbes, the fresh air, those positive negative, which one? Ions, the negative ions. So you want
ions, yeah.
Yeah. Yes. And so that you feel good, but also, I guess that's one of the things that you sort of overlook, I guess, is the sound, the birds and the wind and all of those sounds of nature that really, like, if I think about it this morning, even, I was like, well, listen to those birds. The bird song was just like, it just made me smile, without even realizing that, yes, this is putting me into this state of being, which is probably my parasympathetic, rather than the sympathetic fight or flight. I'm feeling chill, calm, happy, just to be out there. And at first, you're pushing yourself to go out, go for a walk, get outside, and then you don't want to come back in. So, and another thing too, I want to highlight.
Yeah, so that.
Yes, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so that's actually called entrainment. So basically, we're in training with what's around us. I mean, this is the basic physics principle. So if you've got a certain frequency and you introduce another frequency that's stronger or different, your frequency is going to entrain with that. So like that's the same principle as like two violins that are tuned the same way. You pluck a string on one, the same string on the other starts to vibrate. So what's happening at a cellular level is with the wireless technology is that the frequency signaling, the frequency language in the body is very subtle. And it's what happens with the wireless technology is it's much more powerful. It's like a jackhammer coming in, and so what happens is our cells start to entrain with that frequency. Becomes, and then their cell signaling gets off, creates immune system problems. Everything in the body is done through electromagnetic impulses. That's how the cells are communicating. That's how they're uptaking proteins. That's how they're releasing waste. And so all this wireless technology is coming in and kind of taking over on that. So back to your bird example, you're basically in training with something that's very natural and making you feel good, and that's exactly. You're exactly right on that.
Okay, and then we also have ways that we create sound as human beings, right? So one of them, it comes to mind, is music, right? And playing music, and certain music will put you in this state, and other music will put you in that state. Like metal, heavy metal with someone screaming and yelling is going to put you in a very different energetic wavelength than, violin, like you mentioned, like, string instrument. Or that voice. So you talked about singing and the voice. And so it makes me think of the mother, and not necessarily just mothers, but I, just for me being a mother, singing to my kids every night before we went to bed. Every single night we would sing one more song, one more song, one more song. And that was such a beautiful way to send them off into that sleep, that rest mode. So, I really value that. So let's talk a little bit more about why human sound in particular has been the sound therapy of choice for the development of HUSO.
Sure. So, actually some of that goes back to, to what you're talking about, the mother singing. I mean, that's the first thing that we're exposed to. I mean, that's what the baby's hearing in the womb is the mother talking or singing. So, that's the powerful thing. And there's a reason that human sound has been used for a long time by indigenous tribes for healing, because human sound has the ability to, at many levels, to go deep into the cellular level of the body. I mean, and obviously a lot of religious traditions and spiritual traditions talking about, that basically the world was created through sound. Mm-hmm. So, that's why sound is just very primal in terms of, what it's doing for us, and how we respond to that and that's certainly the case versus what we believe versus a digital sound. This machine produced, because our bodies, that's something that's only, been in the very recent past, digital sound. So it's digital technology that's doing a lot of the damage to us, and it doesn't really make sense to use digital sound to try and heal it. But it's I know, I mean, there's certain aspects I think that are very work well on digital sound, and other things maybe just the fact that it's digital, the body just doesn't accept it, or it's not as restorative as the human sound. Mm-hmm. The other thing that HUSO, one of the things that HUSO, when was created, when we did, was originally created, it was done by a couple very powerful sound healers with a great intention for healing. And so it was basically toned in a studio, and it was broken into its individual frequencies. And then I'll give a little bit more information on that in a minute. But the intention of what our intention is very important. And mm-hmm. So, I mean, again, quantum physics has shown us that our thoughts, intentions, and beliefs create our reality. That's all been proven. So the intention that was put into these tones was by some powerful sound healers who are really what we call strong vessels for bringing healing through them. And this is something that they do with individuals on a frequent basis. And so that intention was put in there. So that is the carrier. That's the basis of what was broken out from those original tones. The first part. The second part is we then took those tones, those bass frequencies, and then we enhanced it with harmonics of each of the bass frequency to create an oscillating waveform that, through the principles of resonance and entrainment, is very restorative at a cellular level. Mm. So, what we like to say, we like to say ancient tradition meets modern technology, because the ancient tradition is the human sound part, and then the modern technology part is putting it into a waveform that is going to, what we call, it's a certain oscillation pattern that kind of hits that cellular level and restores the natural oscillation pattern, talking about that resonance and entrainment, restores that natural oscillation pattern in the cell. Mm-hmm. So that's, and then we're delivering that both through headphones and also into the body via acupuncture meridians, the pads on the acupuncture meridians. So that's what some of the reasons that HUSO has been very effective in terms of helping people in many ways.
Yeah, well, can we get into that a little bit more? I mean, I think that I could answer my own question maybe, but what kinds of things can you help or improve with sound therapy? And to me, it almost sounds like it's a gateway to everything. But if you have, any comments to make about that, what sorts of things people are reporting to improve upon with using sound therapy?
Well, excuse me, that's our dogs.
That's fine.
So I can only I can only specifically, what I'm going to do is specifically talk about Huso in relation to that. So, with Huso, we are seeing really tremendous results in a lot of areas. And the reason that we feel that that's the case is because we are returning the body to that parasympathetic or resting or healing state. And because so many people are in that sympathetic state, and depending on your body blueprint and depending on your other things like levels of metal toxicity, depending on how much exposure you have to electromagnetic fields and so forth, you're going to have different symptoms manifesting in many different ways. And so when we go to a foundational level and we are restoring that sympathetic state, or the parasympathetic state, then people are seeing results in many areas. And I want to add that this is not like something we are just talking about and people like say, well, did something happen? Because usually, for the vast majority of people, when they run on Huso, they know even after that first session that something significant has happened. But, most people, the initial results that we're seeing really revolve around issues that have to do with sleep, stress, nervous system conditions, because that is generally what is manifesting for most people when they're in a sympathetic state. They're not able to sleep. They're wired all the time.
Yep.
They're anxious about that. And it's causing other things that could be like, and then they get depressed about that or whatever. But we're also seeing, like, we're having some major results in areas like mental focus. We're having major results in areas like sports performance. We've got some number of pro athletes using Huso with really good results, like for recovery. So, Huso is restoring that. It's basically just taking your body back to the state where it's meant to be in a normal state, and it's meant to do its own thing. Okay, because most people, it's really surprising. It's interesting because I've run so many people on Huso over the last couple of years, and people get off the table or they finish the session and they're kind of looking at their hands and they're like, what am I feeling? And they have not felt like what they're supposed to feel, actually what they're normally feeling like in so long, they don't even remember what it's like.
Yeah.
So that's a scary thing. And because they're staying in that state, that's leading to all kinds of health problems. So definitely sleep and stress, nervous system conditions, but certainly, we feel like there's a lot of like chronic illness conditions coming off of that. Foggy brain, certain aches and pains, things like that.
Yeah. And it seems like too, even our little kids, like I actually think that, people sort of normalize things, like people that are older and they haven't felt like good in a long time, but they kind of remember what it was like, or they're forgetting, but they did have this opportunity to be in kind of like a normal, rest and digest kind of state most of the time. But then now we have this generation of children who, some of them actually haven't ever felt that, like ever. They were born into a high stress situation and their nervous systems were already wired that way. So I think that it's really beneficial. Something like this would be really beneficial for those kids as well that have never actually felt that way. So, so maybe we should talk a little bit about Huso more, in particular. So what is Huso? Because we keep referring to it, and I don't think we haven't actually talked about what it is. So maybe first we'll start there. What is Huso?
So Huso is short for human sound. Huso is a sound frequency therapy that balances autonomic nervous system and it's available both as a professional unit and a home unit, showing really good results in the areas I mentioned: sleep, stress, nervous system conditions, mental focus, sports performance, and recovery. So it's basically applied through headphones and also through pads on the body. It's a patented technology. There's nothing else out there like it that's really anywhere close. All the tones, they all sound different. They all feel different coming through. People can go to our website. It's thisishuso.com, and they can listen to some of the programs, see what they sound like. They're all doing different things, and they're all, just having powerful results for a large majority of people.
Yeah, and you get it, and it's like this little device, and you connect it on your wrists and your ankles, and you can feel the pulse. on your body, like you said, the meridian points, but also you're hearing it. So it's like, whatever the frequencies are. And so I remember when I first got mine and I asked you, like, can I do this when I'm doing other things? Because, like, it's like you get busy and it's just dumb. You're just thinking you're supposed to be doing. And what am I going to do here for 20 minutes listening to this? And so, no, you said, no, you need to sit, like you're doing the opposite of what you're supposed to do. So you're supposed to sit, and actually as you listen, you wind down, then you want to sit. Like first you're like, oh, I have to sit here. And then it becomes like a gift, to be able to sit and to
Yeah.
shift everything right into that parasympathetic mode. Yeah. So
Yeah. That's an important part. Yeah. I was gonna say, I don't know if I was really insistent, like, no, don't do that. But
well, actually, you were.
Basically, that's a very important. Yeah. But that is an important part of being able to take time away. So a lot of people. So probably over 50% of people fall asleep when they run on Huso, and but it's very calming for probably either fall asleep, or it's very calming for 75 to 90% of people. And a lot of people report that they lose track of time and space, which is actually a good thing, because
So
it's kind of like you're just going to that. You're going to that space of, like, the same type of space you go into meditation, and you're basically just giving your body that chance to recalibrate for 30 minutes in the day, and it's important not to be doing anything else. You need to let your mind go and everything go, and that's how you regenerate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, like, is that okay to fall asleep?
No, actually, it's very beneficial to fall asleep. And so, Huso is actually helping people to really recalibrate their sleep patterns on a long-term basis, in terms of being able to, ideally you really want to be getting tired about 9 o'clock at night. You need to be off of electronics after about 6 or 7 p.m. And you should be getting tired like 9 p.m., going to bed, and for the most part sleeping 7, 8, 9 hours. And sleep has been determined to be the most important regenerative process that we undergo. It's critically important. That's been coming out in the last couple of years. So Huso is helping people recalibrate their long-term sleep patterns. It also helps with short-term, like, fix. If you can't get to sleep that night, you can run it right before bed, or like I'll run it. If I wake up in the middle of the night, my mind starts racing, I'll put the headphones on. I won't put the pads on. I'll just put the headphones on and listen, and it usually knocks me back out. So, yeah.
Amazing, because a lot of people and all ages have sleep problems nowadays, a lot, and that will just wreck your life. Really, I mean, basically, that's what it does. And I wonder how good it would be for people working shift work, or that have no choice as far as when they're able to go to sleep. I'd be really curious to see the results for that. But okay, so one other question I have about Huso in general, like, and specifically, is how else does it stand apart? You talked about digital sound and this human sound, and you have a unique delivery system, or like recording. Like, how is it? You were saying something in another interview that I was listening to about how it's different.
Well, I mean, obviously human sound is the carrier. So,
Okay.
And that's been put in a specific waveform, and then it's delivered to headphones and pads. We're also, in the pads, we have a small speaker and a high-grade lab-grown crystal, and that crystal is amplifying the oscillation of the sound. Crystal, is a great store of energy. Our bodies also, they have a lot of crystalline properties to it. So what happens is that comes into the body. The sound comes in the body and creates what's called a piezoelectric effect in the cells, which means that when you have a piezoelectric effect, you're either introducing an electrical current that's creating a vibration, or you're introducing a vibration that's creating an electrical current. And that is for certain property. There's certain things that have that property. So like crystals have that property, but also like our bones and DNA have that property. And that's how the normal cell signaling in the body works. So we're triggering that piezoelectric response, and that it creates a biophotonic response in the cells. And that travels along the fascia of the body, and the fascia are what line all of the nerves and all of the muscles and everything. And that's considered now to be considered like the information highway of the body. And the fascia are made up of a lot of crystal. So it really matches up well to that. And we talk about feeling the energy running in your body, because people talk, and that's what happens with Huso, because you can feel that kind of running through your body. And where it goes is it triggers your vagus nerve, which the vagus nerve is for the parasympathetic response in the body. So we had the crystals and the pads. We also we're wired in a wireless world, and that's important to us and important to our technology, because if you listen to anything, well, we're doing that for two reasons. Number one, because we don't want to add to the EMFs. If we were wireless, like over Bluetooth, we'd be adding to the wireless, to adding to the EMS. The second thing is that our unit's generating what's called lossless sound, which is non-digitized sound. So if you listen to anything over the internet or anything over your phone or everything, it's all been digitally compressed. I don't mean to say non-digitized, I mean non-digitally compressed sound. It's all been digitally compressed. So when you compress sound, you take out a lot of the beneficial harmonics and frequencies that are in that wide range. And so we have all those in there, and those have a lot of restorative properties to it. This is why you have a lot of audio enthusiasts going back to like analog in terms of like the record players or vinyl and stuff like that, versus the digital sound, because it's the lossless sound is a much richer sound. So that's another thing that's in our unit.
Awesome. That's awesome. It's like you thought of everything. Because actually, most people don't even worry about the wireless aspect. Like, that's the first thing I thought. When I thought about it, I'm like, good, you plug it in. Like, and even that, I was like, is this, sending any kind of EMS my way? But I really appreciate that, because there are a lot of things and devices and stuff that are supposed to be for our health that actually are kind of damaging it because they're wireless or Bluetooth. And then, okay, so, yeah. So, and also, before we started our interview, I even mentioned that, well, I think, parents are being more inclined to use it because they're adults, and you might have to put these pads on your wrist or whatever. And, is that awkward for children? But you said that whole families use this unit with great results. So you use this with children as well?
We've had really good results with children. It's very grounding for them. We've had some excellent results with kids, that have problems with their behavior, just in terms of being able to calm down, and ADHD kids and so forth. There's nothing wrong with these kids for most of these kids. I mean, they're basically in a world that's kind of crazy, and they are super sensitive. Even the American Academy of Pediatrics says, it's basically got stated regulations now that's like up into nothing up to age 2, and then like age 2 to age 5, they say limit like any electronics for up to 30 minutes, just 30 minutes a day. And even for up to teenagers, they said no more than 2 hours a day. But the kids, are still developing, obviously, and then they're very sensitive to these electromagnetic fields. And so it's really hard on them. And that's why you're getting, we believe a lot of these behaviors are stemming from some of these things. So what Huso does, I mean, they take the Huso basically a duck to water, in terms of they know it's good for them as soon as they get on. It feels very grounding. And we've got, there's a lot of families that are using Huso for both stressed out parents and also for stressed out or for kids to help calm them. And we've had, there's just a number of very positive testimonials. We have people posting pictures of their kids on Instagram running on Huso, and so they think it's a cool thing, and it is a cool thing, because anything that helps them is a cool thing. And we're grateful to be helping people in this way, because we know that people are, I mean, I hear from people every day that are just, I don't know how people are doing it in terms of their health and how they're maintaining their attitude and, and just keeping their spirits. Because if I had some of these things, I would be probably pretty much acting like a victim mentality or whatever. But these people are like amazing. So, and they're looking for help. They're looking for things that can help.
Yeah, and this can definitely help. I really appreciate that too, and you saying that there's nothing wrong with these kids. They're living in a crazy world, and so I think doing something like using your product, like it is actually enabling them to not only cope but transcend all of that. And I think looking back at my initial thought about, well, would a child actually use this? Heck yes, because it's only the initial trying it the first time. And then like, what's this? This is weird. I gotta put, I have to sit. But then it feels so good that they're like, you're not, saying, oh, you better do this therapy now, and it's gonna be something you're not gonna like, but we're gonna have to push through it because, no pain, no gain. It's nothing like that. It's where, you use it and it feels so good that you're just like, yeah, it's my time. This is my time. And teaching our children to take that time to feel good that's just, that's going to lead them toward health as well. And so, Larry, I really, really appreciate you being on the Children's Health Summit for telling us all about this unique, wonderful, beneficial therapy that, parents can use for themselves and have their children use. It's a whole family affair, and really creating an environment of healing for all of them. So I appreciate that. Now, are there any final words that you'd like to leave us with?
No, I just wanted to say I really applaud the work that you're doing and trying to help families, and in so many ways. And Huso is just one tool in what needs to be a pretty big arsenal in terms of other things like eating well and just a number of things. There's a lot of information on our website in terms of studies on sound therapy and frequency medicine, and information on electromagnetic fields, that type of stuff in terms of getting an understanding. You can link to a lot of the studies. And so recommend that people obviously do as much research as possible and understand some of the challenges they're facing, some of the things that we're having to deal with in this world. Because there's a lot that's kind of we're being assaulted with. So, our website is thisishuso.com. So thisishuso.com. And if somebody has questions, we're welcome to email us, and we try and answer those. But thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and we'll link to your website for sure under this talk so that people can get that information, contact you, be able to purchase a Huso if they so choose, which I highly recommend. And also to be able to find those studies and read up, if you want to know more, that, Larry's got a bunch of stuff there. So that's just perfect. And I have to say that as soon as I get off with you right now, I'm going to go use mine because I've been working like a mad person, and I'm actually really like, okay, click off, because I want to go and do it. Like I want to get to that state. And I'm like, yay, juicy. So that's what I'm going to go do. I'm going to go rig up to my Huso and do some chilling, because this is fourth and final interview for today. So thanks again, Larry, for coming on, and have a wonderful day.
You too. Thank you for having me, Carla. Take care. All right.
I hope you enjoyed this interview, and be sure to listen to more interviews from this timely and groundbreaking series. If you would like more information, guidance, and support through your family's health journey, and or want to join our growing community of professionally trained family health coaches, please visit us at healthyfamilyformula.com. Together, we can turn the tide for the future health of our children. May you and your families be well.